All right, just me and you today, no whiteboard. The word lie is big in our politics right now, right? Why? Because it's happening a lot, but we don't usually use it. Why? Well, because it's disrespectful, and we used to have a premium on respectful discourse, and that you didn't want to read into somebody's intentions. But that's gone by the wayside with an increasingly toxic political environment, a crudeness in how our politicians, and frankly, you and everyone in this country talks to one another, and because of the severity of what we've been seeing in our political dialogue. So, when do you use it? What do you call a lie? You know, it's such an interesting word. I looked it up. We all know what it means, right? It's intent to deceive. You know, you say something that you know is wrong and you say it anyway with the reason being to deceive somebody else. So it's different than saying 2 plus 7 is 8. It's not a lie. It's wrong. It's a lie if you know that 2 plus 7 is 9 and you say 8 anyway to deceive me in some way. You know, when you do the etymology of lie, it's amazing the similarities of all the different root words where you look at the Swedes or Proto-Germanic or Latin or Greek. The words look the same. They begin with L also often. Why? Because everybody gets it. And it's something everybody has to deal with in every culture, and we're dealing with it right now. And we're dealing specifically with what happened in this election. Is there voter fraud in this country? Yes. There are good and bad reasons for that. One, there's no national standard. It's an incredibly antiquated system in most places. There are good and bad reasons for that. It's run by states and even more so by localities very often. So it's a system that is really not dealt with innovation, that really has not progressed. And why? Because people are so desperate to hold on to how we do our outcomes, and there are all these different political pressures about how many people we want to vote and what kind of people we want to vote. Voter suppression is a very real thing. Then comes what we're dealing with right now. And I'm telling you this, I don't care if you're a trumpet or a Clintonista or somebody in between. I do not want to spend all my time chasing after the President of the United States for whether or not he's telling the truth. I want to respect the office as much as anybody else, maybe even more these days. I want to talk about the policy initiatives. I want what matters to you and your families to be of paramount importance, and keep the media and all the masturbatory talking about us and what we mean and what we don't mean to a minimum. But, if you're going to undermine the systems of democracy, that has an echo effect around the world. The symbol of American greatness to many is the free enterprise of democracy. That it happens and that it works. I've seen it. That's not some BS that I read somewhere that we just parrot as part of propaganda. I've been to countries, large and small, all over this world, and I'm telling you, the ability to choose and the power of self-determination and democracy is what matters, almost as much as the movies and the glitter and the promise of money growing on trees that so many hold as a misconception of what life in America is like, literally and metaphorically. 3 to 5 million illegals voted, and that changed the popular vote in our election for president. If I were to stop that right there, many of you would be fine with it. And you'd say, yes, I believe it. And you believe it for bad reasons. And one of them now includes the President of the United States saying it. There is no proof. His basis for it right now, as we understand it, comes from studies that were either flawed or didn't reach that conclusion. It's bad information, it's bad reckoning, and if you know that, which it seems that they must know that they don't have the proof for this. Sure, they know it'll work on your nerves and work on your suspicions and your feelings about conspiracies, about who's in power and how they engender it and keep it and procure it, but that doesn't make it right, it makes it a lie. Because if you know it's not true and you say it anyway, and you say it to deceive, then it's a lie. The president got boxed in politically. He couldn't keep spinning that BS and then not be proved to do anything about it as president of the United States. That's the difference between being a private citizen and the most powerful man in this world. That means he had to do something. So now he says he's going to investigate. And on those panels, they happen to be all the same categories that were reached in these studies that I'm telling you about. The types of voters that they looked at. Whether undocumented people voted, whether you're registered in 2 places, whether you're dead and still on the rolls. Those are the categories that come from those same studies that I'm telling you about. But he reached a conclusion they did not, or they did so in error. And they've admitted it themselves, or they've been exposed by those who actually hold and control the raw data that they misanalyzed. So if he wants to look at those things, that's great, because we have real problems in this country on those levels. He should have included voter suppression and ID laws that are calculated perhaps to suppress different groups and demographics that don't respond well to those types of criteria for good and bad reasons, but he didn't. He's playing on his own fate. This is an exercise of what happened to him and that he wants to justify it the same way with that 9/11 celebrations BS that we dealt with. Was it happening? Yeah. Not at the scale or the way he said. Nobody ever justified that. Are we going to have a commission on that now? Are we going to have a commission on whether or not Cruz's dad had something to do with the assassination of JFK? Is that going to be next because he believes it? Because somebody told him that? Or because it works for him some way, politically or personally? There's no basis for this. It is a lie. The secretaries of state of all these different states that are relevant to this analysis say didn't happen in their state. Many of them are Republicans. That's why we call it out. And I wish I didn't have to dwell on it because, one, I don't want to give oxygen to a fire that shouldn't be burning in the first place, undermining what happened in our election. I don't want false bases being developed for delegitimizing the President of the United States, Donald John Trump. He won. It's over. He keeps calling it into question. We started our show today, New Day, Allison and I, by talking about his executive orders and what they mean and how they'll be made manifest and what that means for you, good and bad. He then did this. He brought this up. So remember all of these things as you're going through it, and don't get caught up in who calls it a lie and who doesn't. I get there's some sense of satisfaction in that for people who feel this is egregious. And I've used the word myself, and I use it sparingly when I think it is absolutely justifiable. But what matters most is the truth, the testing of what happens with power, and we have to hold power to account when they exceed any expectation of reasonable behavior. That's the job. I'm sorry if you don't like it. That won't change how we do our job. Have a good day.